What's up, fellas? I want to go over this tune for boosted Jeeps. I'm in a group on Facebook. It's Boosted 4.0 Club, and I had a guy on there questioning it, wanting to hire somebody to do it. But I really think you need to learn how to do it, because if you change a map sensor or anything, you have to go up injectors, you want more boost, any of that, you're gonna have to do all this all over again. So I'm gonna try to go over it a little bit better. What I've learned with my Jeep. My Jeep's on, if you're on my channel, you know it's on E85 with 53-pound injectors, Hellcat pump, and it's making 10 pounds of boost now. I don't have a log on that yet, but we went and ran it yesterday, and it's all good. But to start out, you know, your general stuff, 6-cylinder, and I suggest you, when you put your HB tuners and hook it up, you download your program to your laptop from your stock tune, where you can compare it. And to open a compare file, you would open a compare file, go find it. See, we'll find my stock tune. Stock tune. And that'll keep you on, keep you in line. Like if you mess up, you can go back and see where you did it at, what you changed, all that stuff. But my main file, I've got some stuff changed on mine because it's got a camshaft in it. Mine's got a 498 lift cam. It's 114-degree lobe separation, so my idle stuff's going to be a little bit different. But mainly, to get it running correctly, you would go in your map sensor settings, and I've seen on HP tuners forum boards, you know, 190, 200, different ones. It's all according to where, what atmosphere you're in, you know, the altitude to what this is going to be, because it's going to be different for all of us. But what you're doing is that you're setting this multi-scale up, so when you key on, engine off, it'll be reading, mine reads about 40, just key on, no engine running or nothing like that. So all this is vacuum for me up here, and all this down here be boost. But to get it running decent, I had to figure out that, let's go back to this. The map scale here, like I just said, setting this will set where you key on at, not engine running, and that'll be vacuum, that'll be boost. Wherever you set that number is going to set this number, wherever it sits at. I got a 2-bar GM map. Mine just turned out to be 45. I left it there and tuned it that way. That leaves all this for boost. But wherever you end up at here, that's how you got to tune it. Boost, vacuum. Okay. That's what mine ended up being, 190. Moved mine down to 40. I think it was 20 when I first keyed it on with that map I got. And every map sensor is different. I've got two 2-bar map sensors, and both of them, one of them will key on at 30, one of them will key on at 40. You know, they're different. So if you ever have to change it, you're going to have to know this. The fueling. If you go into oxygen sensors, closed loop enable, you set this at 300 degrees coolant temp before it enables closed loop. It'll stay in open loop. Then you're not tuning both of these maps, both of these fuel scales. You just do EGR on, EGR off. That kind of confused me too. The computer ain't responding. Okay, that's the stock tune. EGR off. That's what my tune is now with the 85. I'll show you the easiest way to do this, because if you go moving these numbers around, I've learned this too. Say you add fuel here, here. If you go too far, it wants to you'll see your fuel pressure all over the place because it's trying to keep up with it. The best thing to do is move everything up. Say this is your stock tune. You got your map scale set to where you're reading half of your chart. What I ended up doing was I would just move up. I moved up each cell. You copy, paste it, move it up one. Do all of these that way until you're moved everything up one cell and you did away with the top. Try it. If it's still want to be lean, just move it up again. If you're running 93 and you move everything up one and you're setting around 50 or 40 or somewhere around, it should run. It'll crank up and go up in here. Be idling up in here somewhere. And then when you hit your boost, you'll be in these numbers down here. That's the easiest way to do it. Is just move everything up. Copy, paste, move one up. Copy, paste, move that one up. Move it up, all the way down. And then when you get to the bottom, just move that one up double, 2 times. It sounds like it's, I know it's not that easy to get it tuned, but that worked for me. If you go changing all these numbers, it's going to really run crazy. What I found anyway. But you can see how I've moved mine up to 275s up there, 3500. And then where you start having to add fuel usually is within boost. It'll probably run pretty good up in here in vacuum. But if you need to remove some, you just remove it from vacuum or add the boost or whatever you need. By the way I do it is I'll go a negative 0.500 milliseconds, because this is milliseconds, and then add that and it'll remove 0.500 milliseconds fuel. So let's go. Okay, what we went to oxygen sensors, closed loop, fuel, EGR off, tune that. Power enrichment will be irrelevant because it's not going into open loop. None of this is. Your spark table, I go in and modified all these. I just set all mine to 25. Anything in boost is what I start out with, E85. That might not work for you. You might want to start at 20. All these tables are done that way, whether I needed to or not, because I want to make sure the timing stayed, and it did. It does. It's got wide open modifier for your spark. I set all that to 0. I don't want no surprises. Engine coolant temp. These two here are useful in boost. Remember this spot, because if you've got your base EGR off base timing at 25 or 20 or whatever it is, the hotter your intake gets, the lower you're going to need to take your timing. So you go in this base corrections, and this is really useful for us with boost. Air intake temp, you can set it to remove more timing as hotter the intake gets. Intake air temp, the hotter it gets. You want your air intake temp sensor in your intake too. I mean, where it can see the boost pressure, getting hot, cold, whatever. And you can modify this to remove timing the hotter it gets. I think I got an example of where mine's removing it. Let's see if I can find that. You go in that's your timing. You can do it for coolant temp too. Now I don't know if it's an additional 3. It probably is. 213 down. You can set that up how you want it. But main problem that I was having, if you crank it up and you're getting it tuned and it still wants to run crazy, and you unhook the battery and hook it back up, say if it was delivered brand new in the mountain somewhere, the first time you key it on, it's going to run off of whatever it sees and be okay. But as soon as you key it off again, it's going to go into a borrow error if it's not right. So you would go in a section you wouldn't really think of. Go in engine diagnostics. And what I did was I set my borrow pressure, my minimum valid and minimum valid borrow pressure, the barometer, a little bit tad under what mine's setting at, key on, and engine off. I did the same thing here. It seemed to work. But I'm going to show you something else too about this. If you look at that, mine sets at 40 kPa when I key it on. If you look at the stock tune, it minimum to 52, like it defaults to 98 kPa if it sees a below 50. So really, if you're above or below, you just want to match this up close to where you're sitting at with your 2-bar map when you key it on. You want to get this in line with that so it's not less, or you know what I'm saying, like that. But I'm going to show you something I found too that it may do away with this. I haven't noticed anything because I got mine set up the way it's supposed to be set and it works. But if you go over here, see airflow. I also found this on HP Tuners on their board. Some guys put their map blow limit to 50. I did that, but I don't know if it changed anything because I made too many changes at once. That's another thing. You want to make small changes when you are messing with it or you'll get lost. This is the factory. Okay. I'm clicking on my compare map, my compare file up here is what I'm doing. That's when it changes it. I found this yesterday, or the day before yesterday. Your DCTs, engine diagnostics, and you go to your DCTs. Well, I was hovering over this side over here. You need to read the bottom of it first. It's for off-road use only, which my Jeep is. It's a toy. It don't get driven. Read that at the bottom before you're messing with this, because if you got emissions you got to pass, you can't do stuff like this. But this is the, I think this is what throws it into this code here, is what I was seeing. And that is, I think it's coding for this, and that's what puts it in default. And if you haven't changed this, it's going to default it to 98 kPa. Or that setting, it's going to default it to that. But I found, look at this. This is all your codes. I happened to go over here and just hover over that, and I clicked on it. And you can drop down and disable it. Now I did that, and I don't know if mine was running okay when I found it. I just was looking around because I've been studying this for a few weeks since I put my supercharger on mine. If you look, there's stock file. It won't even show you the compare file on this for some reason. But all of these codes, and really you're not supposed to change stuff in here, blah blah blah, for the law, but anything that would matter, it won't let you change it. All this area here is your O2 sensors. It won't let you disable that stuff. Now another thing with my Jeep is different than probably a lot, because, let's see and find it. Anyway, I wanted to show you that. Try turning it off and see if it helps it. If you're having that, if you're unhooking the battery and you hook it back up and it runs good for a minute until you key it back off and key it on, then you're having borrow issues. That is the only way around that is setting that right. Let's see, my Jeep has, show main file. When I first got this program, It was probably 2 years ago. And I haven't been able to find this since, but okay, if you go into, let's open another compare file. You can turn the rear O2 sensor off, which I did. But now, when I updated it, I can't find that where you turn that off. Will that matter? I don't know. It's probably just uses that for closed loop. You see how I've got that labeled as O2 rear O2 off? Well, that's not on here anymore. So, but I think if you force it into stay in closed loop, it won't matter anyway about that. But anyway, you can go in here and change your different things for idle. If your idle air motor's wanting to act weird, crazy, like idle up, idle up, idle up, and all that, I found if you just keep dropping this down, see, my camshaft, I don't have the vacuum ain't right as factory anyway, so it don't want to. This is all your idle air motor stuff, and I found if you lower this down, the lower you make this, it settles that idle air motor down, and you probably could do away with it, but I haven't tried that yet either. It works, so I just left it on there. Okay. Well, that's about it. That's what I just showed you. The airflow. That's where you change your map to make it read half scale with a 2-bar map or 1.5, whatever you got. Thomas Beyer, Thomas Beyer on YouTube. He's gotten us down pretty good too. And I think he used a Honda map on his, so he knows what to set this at. And you know, you can hire him to do it and hire somebody to do it, but to me, if you don't learn this and anything happens, say you want a little bit more boost or different fuel injectors, or you want to switch to E85, or you change your map, you're going to be right back in the same spot trying to figure this out, or you just have to pay somebody to do it every time. And I think he'd agree with me on that. I follow him on YouTube, and he was the first one I seen that made this work and made it look easy. He's actually why I went and bought this to try it, because it looked like it worked out pretty easy. It didn't turn out to be as easy as he made it look, but let's see, your fuel, your injector offset and stuff, I've not messed with any of this kind of thing here. I've left that alone. I did change this because I'm on E85. It needs a little bit more to start because you use almost double the fuel with E85. I know that from messing with methanol, so I gave it a little bit more there. And that's how you do it. All this would be repetitive, but if you're trying to figure this out, that's my tune. And like I said, take your stock one, move it up one, move it up one, move it up one, move everything up one. Because theoretically, if you're setting at 40, key on, engine off, then this should be all this fuel here, but that's too much. You just have to move it up one is usually enough on 93. Because I tuned mine on 93 and then I tuned it on E85. The E85 is the way to go if you can get it. If it's in your area and you can get E85, because look at my temps and stuff. I mean, it is magic. Let's see where we at here. Air intake temp, engine coolant temp. Now, I haven't changed the thermostat or anything. How long would it be we've been running here? Let's see. Oh no. This was just a little drive down the road, just kind of getting on it a little bit, not much, just seeing what it was doing. And let's see, my air intake temp is 180 there, which I got coolant running through it. And there's under boost at a few pounds, I don't know how many, but This is all the milliseconds. I've learned this too with this, the millivolts. 941 millivolts is about 10.8 to 1 air fuel ratio. And it seems to be that in idle, but when you get into boost, it's a little bit different. But I haven't hooked my wideband to this yet because mine don't have any way to do it without getting pro features. I may do that soon because now I've changed the pulley on the blower and it's making 10 pounds of boost, and I'm scared to turn it past 4800 right this second. I have, but it got lean. It went 1380 at one time. I let all of it. But if you're in your nines and it's in the green, it'll be red if it's not right. It'll be lean red. But anyway, what was we doing? The temperature with the E85. The let's see, 192 air intake and 180 coolant temp. That's the first little bump. We probably slowed down a car or whatever, and we did it again a little bit. Air intake temp's 190. That's with no intercooler. I just have coolant run through the intake. I have a Clifford intake, and it has cooling passages going through the bottom, and I loop the cold side of the water pump that goes to the heater through the intake manifold, and it's keeping it pretty good. There's another little pull. We go on over here. Let's see. That was at 65 kPa from 40. Getting a little lean there at 833. I let off of it. But my air intake temp was at 205. The coolant temp was, I'm sure y'all see it, but I don't. I'm looking through a phone trying to do this. It ain't easy. Let's see. 187. If you can get E85, it will help it big time if it's available in your area. And it's going to take a lot more fuel than you would with 93. But if you got E85, and I got a Hellcat pump and 53 pound, I think they're GT500 injectors, and you look at my fueling map, and you put it in, force it in closed loop, and set it at this, it'll work. I've added a little bit of fuel here and there, but mostly it's just all moved up. Anyway, I think that's about it. This is something you may want to look at too. I got to dabble in this part. I might see this deceleration cutoff. I have lift on my Jeep and lockers and all kinds of stuff done to it, and when you get out of the throttle, it wants to wiggle a little bit. Well, it's cutting fuel when the TPS gets back down to decel. When you're decelerating, it cuts fuel for a second, goes lean, and then comes back. That I got to kind of play with that. But everything else on mine runs good. It works good. I've drove it. I've put 3 or 4 tanks of E85 through it, and it's been fine. No running hot. It just did what it's supposed to do. But I thought I'd make a video and kind of walk through this a little bit, and I may not make much sense with it, but you can look at what I did and go from there with yours. But always save your stock tune, put it up as a compare file, and when you make a change, let's see, if you make a change to your fueling or whatever, say you go in here and do fueling, and say you change this one, just do whatever to it. It's just whatever. We'll add 1.001. Add. As long as you leave that up, you see the little undo last. As long as you don't exit out of this, just click down here, and it'll put it in the tune. You could upload it to the ECM. Crank it up, see what it does, if you went the wrong way or whatever, because you can drag your cursor across down here accidentally and just move that all around. I've done it. But as long as you leave this window up when you're tuning fuel or you're tuning timing or any of that, you can switch it off, go back out of that. It'll take away what you did, and you can start over with where you was at. And that's valuable. That right there is probably more valuable than setting up the map sensor, because you'll get lost in this stuff if you ain't careful. And then if you keep closing the windows out, closing them out, you won't know where you did what unless you're taking notes. And I did. I got a folder where I took notes when I was learning to do with this program. I use this kind of stuff a lot at work, but it's for forklifts and stuff, but it's kind of the same thing. But I never tried to tune a Jeep on E85 with a 2-bar map and a supercharger on it, and it took me a minute to figure it out. But I really suggest, instead of paying somebody to do it, try to learn how to do it. And once you do, I could sit down right now, I could erase my whole tune and sit down here, and then about 10 minutes have something to go out there and at least get it to crank up. And anywho, and you can get that way too. You just got to spend some time with it. Don't get aggravated with it. It takes patience. The more patience you have with this, the longer your engine's going to live. And if you want it to live after you put it on boost, you need to learn this right here really good. And I think we basically are going to have to stay, or I am anyway, going to stay in open loop all the time, because your target air fuel ratio from the factory, when it goes into EGR on or closed loop, is 14.5 and up to 15 to 1. Now you can make it richen up in power enrichment if you're going in open loop, but I haven't. I tried to get it to work like that for a little bit, but I'm running on E85, so it's trying to pull so much fuel out that it made it difficult. So I just kept mine in this table, and it runs fine that way. And it'll do what you tell it to do, and the computer is not going to change anything as far as fueling. Alright, fellas, well, I hope that helps somebody. That was what I learned in a few weeks of tuning on my Jeep. Which I've been tuning on it for a couple years, but just with the stock motor with a cam and stuff, doing stuff like that. And I hadn't did it on boost yet, but I figured it out, and you can too. And if you do, you won't be stuck trying to call somebody or figure out how to do something if you're out on the trail somewhere and you happen to break the nipple off the bottom of your off the bottom of the map sensor, and you got to go get one from the parts store, and you plug it in and it's reading different, and your Jeep ain't going to run. If you don't know what to do with it, you're going to be towing it home. Nobody wants to do that. Anyway, y'all take it easy. I'll holler at you later.